Welcome back to Goosebump on the Midnight series, where the most terrifying haunted stories are told. Tonight, we will immerse ourselves in a chilling tale where familial bonds are betrayed, and dark magic reigns supreme. The Haunted's Melody. Tucked away at the end of a narrow alley, Master Rams lived a tranquil life, striving to bury the glorious yet painful past of a formidable magic practitioner. The haunting memory of his wife's death years ago had led him to self-imprisonment, swearing never to touch the spiritual world again. But fate would not leave him be. One day, a wealthy couple, Mr. Logan and Mrs. Daisy, sought him out, begging for his help. They spoke of the unjust death of their only daughter, Aya, and the terrifying ghostly phenomena tormenting their family. Aya's soul could not find peace, lingering in the mansion, spreading terror with her mournful cries and boundless resentment. The only conduit they brought was a beautiful silver music box, Aya's most cherished keepsake. The moment he touched it, Master Rams knew this was no ordinary haunting. A stream of extremely violent and dark resentment emanated from the box, signaling a dreadful secret being concealed. Reluctantly breaking his vow, Master Rams followed them to the old villa in Transylvania. There, he quickly discovered traces of dark magic, a malevolent soul-binding spell hidden right in Aya's room. He knew he had been deceived. This family didn't just want to summon their daughter's spirit, they were hiding a heinous crime. The first confrontation occurred that very night. The vengeful spirit of Aya, with terrifying power, attacked Master Rams, seeking to end his life. That spiritual battle allowed Master Rams to unveil the truth: Aya's parents had lied. Cornered, they confessed everything. Aya hadn't died in an accident. She had suffered from an incurable illness. Driven by blind greed and incited by someone calling himself Master Chris, they had agreed to perform a wicked ritual, 7 stars life extension and fate transfer. They had sacrificed their own daughter, transforming her soul into a vengeful spirit to gain fortune for their family. The story now became a direct battle between Master Rams and the insidious dark sorcerer Chris, who was manipulating everything from the shadows. Chris relentlessly tormented Master Rams mentally with illusions of his deceased wife, determined to destroy him. To find a way to break the spell, Master Rams had to resort to an ancient and perilous method, dream sight revelation, entering Aya's memories to witness the entire tragedy. On the final night, amidst a terrifying storm, the ultimate battle erupted. Master Rams had to set up the Breaking In Resentment Guidance Array, sacrificing his own life force as an offering, to break the demonic link and redirect all of Aya's resentment back to the mastermind. Would Master Rams succeed in freeing the wronged soul? What price would the wicked sorcerer and the inhumane parents have to pay? And what would be the cost for Master Rams in this battle of life and death? We invite you to listen to the full story to discover the conclusion. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss out on upcoming fascinating stories. Please leave your comments below with your thoughts after listening to the story. This vengeful spirit was too strong and violent. He had to actively attack, but not to destroy, but to find the truth. He asked the servants to thoroughly clean the living room, where he had been attacked the previous night. He needed a clean spiritual space to set up the altar. He personally redrew the talismans with his own blood, but this time, the strokes were more complex, imbued with deeper layers of meaning and power. The ink not only contained cinnabar but was also mixed with fresh blood dripped from his own index finger. He needed the strongest possible power. The purpose of this ritual was not to release or exorcise. It was an ancient and dangerous ceremony, called soul summoning for confrontation. He needed to summon Aya's spirit, in a state where it could communicate, to understand the source of its resentment, and more importantly, to learn what the dark sorcerer had done to her. This was extremely dangerous. It was like a surgeon having to open the chest of a patient suffering from a raging delirium. One small mistake, one moment of distraction, and both the patient and the surgeon would be destroyed. As night fell, the villa plunged into a deathly silence, even more terrifying than ghostly sounds. Mr. and Mrs. Logan and the remaining servants were instructed to stay in their rooms, lock their doors tightly, and cover their heads with blankets, absolutely not coming out no matter what they heard. Only Master Rams remained in the large living room. In the center of the room, he placed a small table. On the table were a bowl of white rice, a fresh chicken egg, 3 sticks of high-grade agarwood incense, and the silver music box placed at the center. Around the table was a circle drawn with rice flour mixed with sulfur powder, and 8 talismans were placed in 8 directions according to the Bagua map, forming a protective array. He sat cross-legged directly in front of the table, holding a white horsehair whisk, his eyes closed, and began chanting. His chanting voice was deep and resonant, echoing throughout the room, dispelling the eerie silence. Each word and phrase seemed to carry weight, creating an invisible protective energy field. The atmosphere began to change. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, cold air emanating from the corners of the walls. The candles on the table began to flicker wildly, their flames dancing furiously even though there was no wind in the room. "Oh, Spirit of Aya," Master Rams called out loudly, but without opening his eyes. His voice echoed, solemn. "I, Rams, a cultivator of the Tao, harbor no ill will. I come here to help you find the path to light, to regain peace. If there is any injustice, please manifest yourself to confront it. I vow to use my spiritual virtue to listen and seek justice for you." There was no reply. Only the wind outside the window grew stronger, like someone wailing. Master Rams continued, his voice more earnest. "Resentment only causes suffering to oneself and others, eternally sinking into a dark, obscure realm. Tell me the truth. Who harmed you? What truly happened on the night you died?" Suddenly, the 3 incense sticks on the table extinguished simultaneously. The smoke did not dissipate but swirled into a gray column directly above the music box. The chicken egg in the bowl began to tremble violently, then stood upright by itself, a phenomenon defying all laws of physics. The living room door burst open with an earth-shattering. A chilling gust of wind carrying the pungent smell of blood rushed in. Master Ram's eyes snapped open. His eyes glowed brightly in the darkness. Standing at the threshold was not the blurry image of a spirit, but a nearly tangible entity. Still Aya in a white dress, but the dress was now stained with fresh crimson blood. Her face was devoid of emotion, her black eyes lifeless. She slowly advanced, her steps not touching the ground, gliding eerily across the floor. Confrontation. Her voice echoed, but her lips did not move. It was a double voice, both the clear voice of a young girl and the growl of a beast. By what right do you confront me? Master Rams gripped the whisk tightly in his hand, his palm sweating coldly. I come as one who wishes to help you. Aya let out a savage laugh, a sharp, terrifying cackle that echoed throughout the room. Help me. Or help them. She pointed her bony finger towards the upper floor, where Mr. and Mrs. Logan's bedroom was. Those hypocrites. Those devils in the guise of parents. They are at fault, but your resentment. It's not just aimed at them. In that resentment, there is also hatred towards the Tao. That's not right, Master Ram said, trying to keep his voice calm to analyze. Someone else intervened. What did that person do to you? As soon as she heard that, Aya's lifeless face suddenly contorted in extreme pain and fury. That person. That person. She hissed, her voice full of resentment. Suddenly, she clutched her head, letting out a scream that tore through the air. All the furniture in the room shook violently. The colossal crystal chandelier on the ceiling shattered, fragments falling to the floor like a deadly rain of glass. The rice flower circle around the altar was blown away by an invisible force. Aya's spirit was losing control. No, more accurately, it was being controlled by something in its subconscious, a kind of restraint, preventing it from speaking the truth. And then, it attacked. Not aimed at Master Rams. It lunged towards the altar table. No. Master Ram shouted, but it was too late. Aya thrust her hand through the bowl of rice, grabbing the upright egg. In a second, the egg turned pitch black like ink. Then it exploded. At the same moment, Master Rams felt an invisible sledgehammer hit his head. The scene before him changed. He was no longer in the living room. He was in another room. Aya's room. But not the tranquil room he had seen. The room was engulfed in flickering black candlelight. In the center of the room was a young man in a black robe, his face cold and malicious. Aya was lying on the floor, her body twitching in pain. And beside her were Mr. and Mrs. Logan, their faces not sorrowful, but filled with distorted greed and hope. The illusion flashed by in just a second. But that wasn't all. Aya's spirit now turned to look at Master Rams, and her face transformed. It was no longer Aya. It became the face of Mrs. Nagini, his wife, in her dying moments, her eyes full of reproach and sorrow, looking at him. Rams. Why did you abandon me? No, no. Master Ram staggered, his heart feeling as if someone had crushed it. This was greatest weakness, the inner demon he had hidden for 20 years. The spirit in the form of his wife smiled a sinister, malevolent grin. You failed once. You will fail again. All those you try to save will die. It lunged forward, not empty-handed, but surrounded by a thick current of dark energy. Master Rams knew he had miscalculated. This spirit was not just bound, it had been assimilated, transformed into a tool of dark magic. The one behind it had placed a restraint on her soul, turning her into a demon ready to destroy anyone who tried to find the truth, and using the opponent's own pain as a weapon of attack. He swung the whisk forcefully, its white horsehair bristling with a silver light, blocking the dark energy. He bit hard on his tongue, spitting a mouthful of fresh blood onto the remaining talismans on the floor. Take. he roared, his voice full of authority. The talismans flew up, automatically arranging themselves into a small array in the air, encircling Aya's spirit. It shrieked, struggling violently, but was finally pushed back by the pure light from the array, vanishing into thin air. The room returned to silence. Master Rams gasped for breath, unable to stand steadily, having to lean on the table. His forehead was bleeding from a small wound caused by a shard of the chandelier. The array just now had almost completely drained his spiritual energy. He had failed in the confrontation. But he had succeeded in confirming one thing. His enemy was not just a vengeful spirit. There was a dark sorcerer still controlling everything from the shadows. And to free Aya, he had to find that person. The battle had now entered a new, much more dangerous and direct phase. Dawn broke after a long, terrifying night. The weak sunlight of the highland morning pierced through the lingering fog, illuminating the living room, which lay in ruins like a battlefield. Master Ram sat motionless amidst the debris, his face deeply etched with fatigue and contemplation. The battle last night had given him an answer, but it raised a myriad of other questions. The image of the wicked ritual, of the young sorcerer's cold, cruel face, and the distorted greed of Mr. and Mrs. Logan's faces, replayed constantly in his mind. When Mr. and Mrs. Logan timidly came downstairs, trembling and frightened, and saw the ruined scene in Master Ram's with a still bleeding wound on his forehead, they could no longer maintain their artificial composure. Mrs. Daisy burst into tearful sobs, burying her face in her hands. Mr. Logan's face was ashen, his legs shaking uncontrollably. "Master! Master, are you all right?" Mr. Logan stammered, his voice barely audible. "Last night, we heard terrifying noises." "Hearing isn't enough," Master Rams interrupted, his voice dry and cold as ice. He slowly stood up, his eyes piercing Mr. Logan, a gaze filled with disappointment and contempt, a gaze that made the powerful man accustomed to commanding others bow his head and look away. "Now, you two sit down. And tell me the whole truth. Not a single lie. Otherwise, I will leave this place immediately. And I swear, no one on this earth can save your family from the wrath of your own daughter. Her resentment will follow you to the ends of the earth." Master Ram's stern threat, coupled with the extreme terror of the previous night, finally broke down the wall of lies and concealment that Mr. and Mrs. Logan had painstakingly built. Amidst choked sobs, in the ruined and cluttered room, the terrible truth gradually came to light, like a festering wound finally bursting open. Aya, their only daughter whom they always boasted was their pride, had not died in a traffic accident. She suffered from an incurable blood disease, a rare form of cancer. Doctors at the most prestigious hospitals, both domestic and international, had concluded she could not live for more than a year. For the Logan family, a clan on the verge of building a massive business empire, this was a devastating blow. They would not only lose their sole heir, but according to a geomancer whom they blindly trusted, Aya's premature death would lead to the collapse of their entire family's fortune. Her death would mark the end of their prosperity. In their despair and selfishness, through a business contact, they sought out a young sorcerer who was gaining notoriety among the wealthy and unscrupulous elite. A man who called himself Master Chris. Chris did not promise to cure Aya. He made an even more terrifying proposal, a demonic solution, performing a ritual called 7 Stars Life Extension and Fate Transfer. "I'm not meddling in your business," Master Rams replied, his voice strangely calm, holding the phone to his ear as if talking to a normal person. "I'm meddling in the business of a poor soul you harmed." On the other end of the line, he let out a cackle, an arrogant and terrifying laugh, unlike a human's voice. "Poor. It should thank me. I gave its meaningless death a meaning. Soon, it will become a part of my power, eternal and immortal. As for you, if you continue, your end will be even more tragic than that girl's. I know about you, Master Rams. I know about Mrs. Nagini. Do you want to see her again?" The threat struck at his core, at Master Ram's deepest pain. He gritted his teeth, veins throbbing on his temples. "You dare." "I dare everything," Chris said, his voice becoming cruel and cold. "Get out of that house before dark. This is my final warning." The call abruptly ended. The phone in Master Ram's hand sparked slightly and its screen shattered. He had made his move first. Chris's warning was not empty words. That very afternoon, as the sun dipped below the pine ridges, the terror returned, but this time it was tenfold worse. Master Chris, from somewhere far away, had used his dark magic to incite all of Aya's resentment, transforming the villa into a true living hell. He didn't just want to scare, he wanted to slowly destroy Master Ram's spirit. The cries and whispers now became clearer, they no longer pleaded but turned to curses and venomous imprecations. Mr. and Mrs. Logan dared not leave their room, they constantly heard Aya frantically scratching outside their door, calling their names with a voice full of hatred. "Father. Mother. Open the door. Why did you abandon me?" The old butler and the maid went mad, screaming and fleeing the villa that very night, taking nothing with them but their terror. But Kai's main target was Master Rams. He was relentlessly attacked by illusions. He saw blood oozing from the wooden floor, saw dark shadows flitting across mirrors, saw Aya's resentful face appearing on the ceiling. But the most brutal attack was the illusion of his deceased wife. He saw Mrs. Nagini standing at the top of the stairs, her face sad and reproachful, asking why he had ventured into this dangerous path once more. He saw her crying in Aya's room, saying that he had failed to protect her, and now he would fail again, accumulating more sin. Each illusion was like a dagger twisting in his soul. He knew this wasn't his wife's spirit, this was just Chris's dark magic, but the pain and torment were real. He had to use all his spiritual virtue, constantly chanting the Vajra mantra to prevent his mind from collapsing, from being consumed by inner demons. He couldn't be weak. If he fell now, everything would be over. The villa was no longer a home, it was a spiritual battlefield, where Master Rams had to single-handedly fight against the combined power of a sinister dark sorcerer and a powerful, controlled vengeful spirit. He knew he couldn't keep defending forever. He had to counterattack. He had to find a way to break the demonic link between Chris and Aya. After a long night battling the relentless attacks of dark magic and illusions, Master Rams looked utterly haggard. His gray hair seemed to have grown even whiter, but his eyes shone with an unusual brilliance. Fear had given way to an iron determination. He knew he couldn't leave this place. Leaving now would mean handing Aya's soul over to the devil, and allowing Chris to continue his wicked deeds with other victims. He had to stay, had to fight to the end. He needed to see the truth, not through the illusions Chris created to deceive and torment him, but the truth preserved in the memories of Aya's soul itself. There was an ancient, extremely dangerous method, recorded in his master's old goatskin book, called Dream Sight Revelation. It allowed a highly virtuous shaman to enter the dreams, or rather, the subconscious realm of a spirit, to re-experience what had happened like a film. But to do this, the practitioner needed a strong conduit connecting to the soul and had to accept the risk that their own soul could get lost, trapped in that subconscious realm forever. The conduit was none other than the silver music box. Master Rams carefully prepared for the ritual. He no longer set up the altar in the living room. That place was heavily defiled by dark energy. He chose the villa's rooftop, the highest point, where he could receive the light of the moon and stars, the pure and powerful energies of the universe. He drew a complex bagua array, not for defense, but to protect his physical body when his soul exited the body. When the moon reached its zenith, casting an ethereal, silvery light, he placed the music box in the center of the array, then sat down facing it. This time, he didn't chant. He began to narrate. He spoke of his life, his mistakes, the tragic death of Mrs. Nagini, and the remorse that had tormented him for 20 years. He didn't speak as a shaman, but as an experienced old man, a widower, confiding in a young soul who had lost everything. He used his sincerity and pain to create empathy, trying to penetrate the shell of resentment that Chris had created for Aya. "I don't want to fight you," he said, his voice deep and full of compassion. "I just want to know the truth. Tell me, Aya. Show me your pain, so I can help you." He placed 2 fingers on the music box. This time there was no chilling sensation like the first time. Instead, a feeling of extreme sadness and loneliness spread into his mind. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and his soul began to sink into another realm, a realm of memory and subconsciousness. The surroundings changed. He found himself standing in Aya's room, but the atmosphere was no longer gloomy and mournful. The room was bathed in sunlight. Aya was sitting by the window, not as a ghost, but as a little girl, though her face was pale and tinged with deep sorrow. She was writing in a diary. Master Rams was like an invisible person, able to see, able to hear, but unable to intervene. He heard Aya's thoughts. She knew she was gravely ill. She was in pain, but not despairing. She was just sad that she didn't have much time left with her parents. But then, she began to notice strange things. Her parents suddenly brought her back to this villa, saying it was for recuperation, but their demeanor was very different. They avoided her gaze. And she saw them repeatedly speaking secretly with a strange man, who was Master Chris. She felt uneasy. Then the scene shifted to that horrifying night. Aya accidentally overheard her parents' conversation with Kai. She knew their entire disgusting scheme. Her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. The pain of her illness could not compare to the pain of being betrayed and sold out by the very people she loved most. When they entered her room to force her to undergo the ritual, Aya did not submit. She resisted fiercely. She screamed, clawed, and cursed them. It was that very resistance, the rage and resentment that surged to their peak in her dying moments, that combined with Chris's dark magic, creating a terrifying resonance. The ritual had not completely succeeded as Chris had hoped. He wanted an obedient, vengeful spirit, a slave to his binding. But Aya's fierce resistance had transformed her into an entity with her own will, a will driven only by hatred and a desire for revenge against everyone. Master Rams had seen enough. He tried to withdraw his soul from that subconscious realm. But Chris had sensed his intrusion. The space around him suddenly collapsed. The image of Aya's room shattered into fragments like broken glass. He saw Chris standing before him, in the realm of consciousness, his face sinister and furious. "You've seen too much, old man," Chris roared. "Then stay here and play with it forever." Chris waved his hand, and Aya's spirit, with its pitch-black eyes, reappeared, lunging towards Master Rams with a terrifying wave of dark energy. In this realm, their power was almost absolute. Master Rams knew he couldn't resist. But just then, something unexpected happened. Aya, as she lunged in front of him, suddenly halted. For a brief moment, her black eyes flashed with a glimmer of consciousness, a glimmer of pain. That was the real Aya, the part of her conscience, the human part that still remained. She had heard Master Ram's heartfelt words. She realized he was not an enemy. "Run!" A weak, desperate voice echoed in Master Ram's mind, Aya's true voice. That moment of hesitation from Aya was his only chance. Master Rams mustered all his remaining strength, exerting his entire will, and withdrew his soul from that place. He jolted awake, gasping for breath on the rooftop. The moon had set. He had succeeded. He had learned the whole truth, and more importantly, he knew that the human part within Aya was not entirely dead. There was still hope. He stood up, looking towards the brightening horizon. He knew what he had to do next. No more defending or running. He had to prepare for the final battle. A grand battle to break the dark magic, release the soul, and make the culprit pay. Master Ram's new time was running out. Master Chris, having had his consciousness invaded and his plan exposed, would certainly not sit idly by. He would soon return, not to warn, but to end everything and reclaim his achievement, a vengeful spirit cultivated to its peak. Master Rams had to act first. He had to prepare one final grand ritual, an array that required not only spiritual virtue but also sacrifice. It was the Breaking In Resentment Guidance Array, one of the most dangerous and lost arrays, recorded in his master's ancient goatskin book. Its purpose was not to exorcise or destroy, but to break the wicked link between the mastermind and the spirit, and simultaneously use the spirit's own resentment to rebound against its creator. Injustice has a source, and a debt has a master. The price to pay was that the array caster had to use their own life force as a conduit, risking severe harm from the resentment, or even death. Master Rams had no other choice. He went down to meet Mr. and Mrs. Logan. They sat huddled in the dining room, looking decades older after just a few days, like two soulless shadows. "Listen carefully," Master Ram said, his voice stern and sharp. "Tonight will be the last night. Either we are all freed, or we will all be buried here. I need your help." He asked them to provide Aya's most personal belongings from when she was alive, a few strands of hair left on a comb, the diary she cherished, and family photos from when they were still happy. These items carried strong yang energy and emotions, essential to awaken the remaining human part in Aya's soul, helping her resist Chris's control. And most importantly, Master Rams demanded that they be present at the ritual. They had to face their daughter, had to apologize from the bottom of their hearts. Their genuine repentance was a crucial part of the power needed to break the curse. Meanwhile, the sky over Transylvania began to change unusually. Dark clouds appeared from nowhere, swirling above the mountaintops. The wind began to howl, lashing at the villa's windows, creating mournful sounds. A great storm was approaching, as if heaven and earth themselves were enraged. Just as Master Rams had predicted, as night fell with torrential rain and lightning tearing across the sky, Master Chris returned. He was not alone. He stood outside the iron gate, his black cloak flapping in the wind. Beside him were two towering dark figures, not human, but two shadow soldiers he had cultivated, their bodies large and muscular, their eyes glowing red like coals. He had come to end everything. Stupid old man. Chris's voice boomed, overriding the sound of the storm, echoing into the house. I gave you a chance. Now watch me reclaim what belongs to me. He didn't need to enter the house. He stood outside, beginning his incantations. He wanted to use his own power to summon Aya's soul, force her to fully submit, and destroy anyone who stood in his way. Inside, Master Rams had completed his array. Not on the rooftop or in the living room, but right in Aya's room, the origin of all tragedy. The Bagua array was drawn with his own blood, with 8 white candles at the 8 corners. In the center were the music box, the diary, and Aya's keepsakes. Master Ram sat in the center, while Mr. and Mrs. Logan knelt opposite him, their faces ashen, trembling uncontrollably. Begin. Master Ram shouted. Outside, Chris chanted spells, his hands making rapid gestures. Inside, Master Rams also began the ritual. A silent battle of magic erupted amidst the storm. The entire villa shook as if in an earthquake. Lights exploded with flashes of fire. Furniture flew through the air, smashing against walls. Aya's soul was torn between 2 opposing forces. She appeared in the middle of the room, her body sometimes faint, sometimes solid, sometimes the image of an innocent girl, sometimes a red-eyed demon. On one side was Chris's powerful, coercive call. On the other was Master Ram's earnest, compassionate invocation and her parents' repentant cries. Her face contorted, showing extreme pain. Aya. My child. Mrs. Daisy wailed through her tears, her cries mingling with the rain. Mom and Dad are really sorry. We were wrong. Please forgive us. Those words seemed to touch the deepest part of the girl's soul. Aya's black eyes suddenly welled up with tears. But just then, Chris amplified his magical power. Resentment flared up again. Aya lost control, she roared like a beast, and dark energy emanated from her, attacking everyone. Master Ram's Sorcerer began to weaken. He knew that spiritual virtue alone was not enough. It was time to pay the price. Remember this, he said to Mr. and Mrs. Logan, his voice now weak. If you live worse than animals, then dying will be even more defiling. With that, Master Rams bit the tip of his finger, using his blood to draw a final talisman on his forehead. He no longer chanted scriptures. He used his very life force as a conduit. "Oh, my dearest lost child, here call thy, your vendetta is not here," he roared, pointing towards the window, where Kai stood. "The one who harmed you, the one who turned you into a demon, is out there. In the name of myself, Rams, vow to use my body as a bridge, to guide your resentment back to its master. Injustice has a source, and a debt has a master. Break." A blinding white light shot out from Master Rams, enveloping Aya's soul. But it didn't attack, it gently cleansed away the dark energy. At the same time, all the resentment, anger, and hatred that Aya had accumulated for so long were guided by that light, piercing through the wall, soaring straight towards Master Chris like an invisible arrow. Chris, who was triumphant, thinking he was about to succeed, did not anticipate this fatal counterattack. He was struck by the very resentment he had nurtured. He screamed a desperate cry, his two shadow soldiers beside him roared and then vanished like smoke. He was consumed by the resentment, his eyes wide and bulging, foaming at the mouth, pointing towards the villa, then laughing manically before turning and fleeing into the stormy night, screaming meaningless words as he ran. He hadn't died, but his mind had been completely destroyed by his own dark magic. Inside the room, as the last of the resentment was drawn away, Aya's soul returned to the form of a pure young girl in a white dress. She looked at her parents, her eyes no longer filled with hatred, only vast sadness and a quiet forgiveness. Then she turned to look at Master Rams, bowing slightly as if in gratitude. Her form faded, then vanished like a wisp of mist in the candlelight. Her soul had found peace. Master Ram staggered and then collapsed to the floor. The array had drained his life force. His gray hair became dry and brittle, his skin wrinkled. But on his aging face, a peaceful smile shone. In his final moments before losing consciousness, he saw an illusion of Mrs. Nagini, not to reproach, but smiling gently at him. He had repaid his debt to the past. The storm passed, leaving Transylvania with an unusually clear sky, as if it had just been washed clean. The Logan family hastily sold the villa for a pittance and left the city. No one knew where they went. The business empire they had traded their daughter's life for quickly crumbled after a series of inexplicable events. People rumored that Mr. Logan was admitted to a mental asylum, constantly muttering about his sins. Mrs. Daisy became a Buddhist nun, living the rest of her life in repentance and solitude. Some said they saw a madman, dressed in rags, with a vacant expression, often muttering about demons in a market corner somewhere. People guessed it was Master Chris, who had paid the price for his crimes. Master Ram survived. But the price he paid was his spiritual sight. He could no longer see the spiritual world. The ability he had possessed his entire life, which had brought him fame but also taken his beloved wife, had now completely vanished. He could no longer sense energy, no longer see things that ordinary people could not. He returned to being a normal old man. He returned to his small wooden house at the end of the alley, continuing his solitary life with his medicinal herb garden. But now, the tranquility no longer carried the heavy burden of torment and regret. Every afternoon, he still lit a stick of incense for his wife, but in his heart, he had found true peace. He had confronted the greatest demon of his life, not Aya or Master Chris, but his own past mistakes and escape. Occasionally, people saw him sitting on the bamboo bed, holding an old silver music box that no longer played. He would clean it carefully, then gaze towards a distant horizon, where a windswept hill stood. He no longer heard piano music, cries, or whispers. Only the chirping of birds on the honeysuckle trellis and the rustling of wind through the leaves. The price had been fairly paid by everyone involved. Yin and Yang had now returned to their rightful order. Thank you for your interest and for listening to our channel story. Please support the channel by liking the video if you enjoyed it, commenting your thoughts on the story and the ending, sharing this video with friends and family, subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss out on upcoming thrilling horror stories. Thank you all for watching.